Hello and welcome to today's webcast presented to you from Mitel and Britannic. This is a housing focused webinar, and before we jump into the presentation I'd just like to run through some logistics for today. So it is a live session, however you are all on mute. We do absolutely encourage questions, and you can do that by typing into the questions box that you can see on the screen there. So hopefully you will enjoy the content of today, and we'll talk about the questions at the end of today's session. So thank you very much. I'll now hand over to our host, Jonathan Sharp from Britannic. Thank you, Jonathan.
Hello, good afternoon, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. So today's session is really looking at some of the changes that we're seeing in the marketplace around digital transformation, how new technologies can be used to reduce cost, improve customer experience, and help to grow value for both organizations and customers alike. So we're just going to take a quick look at the agenda. So I'll just quickly introduce Britannic for those who don't know us. I'll then hand over to Alison from Mitel to really take a view of where the market's at and what Mitel is seeing. I'll then pick up again to look at how and where costs can be reduced and efficiencies improved, and how to use new technologies and approaches to improve customer experience. We've got some live demos today as well, so that's always good fun, challenge for us. So we've broken that down into two sections today, so you'll get to see the technology in action, and we'll wrap up with a Q&A at the end. And please do throughout, if you've got any questions, pop them into the chat, and we'll happily answer them later on. Okay, so very quickly, Britannic Technologies, very well established technology company, so actually formed in 1984, so a huge amount of experience and longevity in the market. A lot of capability around the contact center marketplace, but also experience within the housing sector. So we've worked within the housing sector for in excess of 15 years now, and having a look at the list of who's logged on, it's great to see a number of customers actually on the call today. Really what we do is we work with customers to look at the wide range of technology that's available. We look at how people are communicating and interacting with customers. We look at processes and workflows, and we're really working together to help to address problems and help to improve the way in which people are communicating and operating together. So a full range of capability and technology at our disposal, and it's really what's applicable and appropriate to deliver to customers in what becomes a really a partnership approach of delivering an appropriate roadmap and evolution moving forward. Number of the customers, so the obligatory logo slide. So you'll see there's a lot of housing customers and local authorities on the slide there, but you know, we do have, as I said, many years experience in the industry, supporting over 300 contact centers and actually deployments in over 30 countries worldwide. So we've seen a lot of different requirements, a lot of different challenges, and then we work with customers across many sectors to help to drive improvements in the way in which they communicate and operate using unified communications, contact center technology, and automation. So that's a quick introduction to Britannic, and what I'd like to do now is to hand over to Alison Brewer from Mitel.
Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome, everybody, to the webinar. I'm Alison at Mitel, Head of Housing and Government. For those that don't know Mitel, I see quite a few Mitel customers on the webinar. We're a UC and contact center company. Mitel has been in the traditional telephony market for around 48 years now, so it's not new to us. So we would like to think that we know a bit about telephony, contact center, and unified communications. This is a very quick Mitel by numbers. slide. So just to set the scene, we're a global company. We're number one in the UK market, and we're number one globally for the amount of connected cloud users. We've got 1 million new UC customers per quarter. That's connections per quarter. And, our cloud platform is the most accelerated cloud platform of any other vendor currently in the marketplace. Our contact center, we're number 2, but growing globally as well. So for those customers on the call, hopefully you'll get to see some of our new innovation. And for those that don't know Mitel, hopefully what you see from the Mitel aspect of the webinar today in conjunction with Britannic is of absolute value to you guys. So if I look or take a step back and look at what's driving some changes in the market, there's some key factors that we've looked at, and we've done some analysis and surveys. So 80% of the workforce is deskless. So what that means is most workforces, in housing in particular, whether that be housing officers or maintenance technicians, are mobile. So what does that mean then? That means that, mobility becomes more critical into the work that people do. So the mobile device and applications that sit on that device, data or digital applications, become more important. Artificial intelligence, emerging technologies are changing the way people and businesses interact. So AI and IoT and lots of conversations that we're currently having with Britannic and some of our customers is becoming more commonplace in the customer experience arena. So people are embarking and actually implementing now. We've talked about it for quite a while, but we do have some customers embarking and implementing IoT and AI as we speak. Lack of UC&C strategy. So when you don't have a strategy for unified communications and contact center, and you don't connect those people, those pieces together, then it's estimated that businesses are losing £9,000 per employee per year. So it does start costing real money. So what you'll see out of this session is how you can actually gain more productivity and efficiencies with some of the technologies that we will share with you. And adding on to this, obviously customer experience is what you guys want to deliver an enhanced customer experience for your tenants. So we'll also talk about, how the IoT piece can fit into that. Innovation, I think, requires, that you see what's ahead of you. And at Mitel, we've, found or we have 3 foundational market observations right now. So we're seeing, a modern form of convergence. We talked about convergence many, many years ago, and that was integrating voice and data back in the 2000s. Mitel was the first company in the UK to deliver an IP PBX as an example. But convergence is all about now. It's all about the growth of mobile social, meaning applications that, your tenants are used to using, like WhatsApp, Facebook, or Twitter as an example, and cloud are disrupting how work is done for the better. So these are the new convergence norm is what we're seeing in the marketplace. And, that shift means customers' expectations are evolving as well. So customers are pushing, more businesses, so tenants are pushing more housing associations to be faster and more personal, so to basically, personalize that experience with the tenant. So we do have technologies that will allow you to do that. And, a smart UC&C approach, so good collaboration and communication is at the heart of any digital transformation. So a smart UC&C, unified comms and contact center approach, can be in its strategic advantage to businesses. So some key drivers for change. I'm not going to go into detail about everyone, so I will pick out, but because you guys can read faster than I can speak. And I touched on the mobile app first is increasing in demand. So if I look at that one, we've got many customers that, use our contact center technology. They're coming back into Mitel and clearly into Britannic and asking to deploy, or integrate with apps on mobile devices. Now that could be a smartphone, it could be a tablet as an example. So some housing associations have, a tenant portal. So how can we integrate that tenant portal into the Mitel contact center to provide that more personalized service? So as a business, we're looking at that mobile app first approach as well. And another important aspect to some challenges that you guys may be facing right now is, there is no single view of a customer, that single source of truth. So our open integration at Mitel, which I will touch on, will allow you to integrate then your property management or your CRM application, which gives you guys as housing associations the ability to service that tenant, whether they come in on, through your CRM, your property management system. They're all hooked up at the back end. So we are seeing lots of conversations with Britannic and Mitel around how we can join up all those back office applications and third-party apps into the Mitel contact center. So how can we kind of resolve some of those challenges? Well, using Mitel Omnichannel Contact Center will absolutely deliver productivity and efficiency gains to housing associations. So that's hooking in all of those social interactions that I mentioned. So Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp as an example, and we will talk about that a little bit more as we move through the webinar. And then continuous innovation. So with Mitel, we've partnered with Google, we've partnered with Amazon Web Services. There's technologies out there that can deliver some, innovation to housing associations, whether it's through artificial intelligence such as chatbots or IoT, machines, whether that's an Alexa or a boiler sensor for white goods within a housing stock. So there's some of the resolutions and some of the technologies that we'll kind of come on to as we walk through this webinar. And last but not least, just touching on the property management and CRM applications that we can offer via Mitel and Britannic. We've got many customers using different, as you would imagine, housing management applications. So these are some of the integrations that we've delivered to some of our end customers. So, some will be absolutely familiar to you guys, Orchard, Arian, Lagan, Capita. So, there's always a way to deliver some of those interactions into the contact center, so you do have that single source of the truth for your tenant and your customer base. And on that note, I will hand back to Jonathan.
Okay, thank you, Ali. So, it's really interesting and exciting times, not just in the industry, but the changes that we're seeing today. And I think a lot of that's been accelerated by COVID-19, the growth of people working from home, the number of people, unfortunately, have been furloughed, but the expectations to carry on delivering key and critical services to the tenant community. I think we just lost position of the slides there, so I'll just come back. We've worked with Mitel now for a number of years, since 2002, so we've got a lot of experience in integrating into the Mitel Contact Center and delivering Mitel solutions to customers. And certainly what we know is the types of communications that people are using today is changing. We're seeing more consumer-based applications and channels that people want to incorporate. There's been a big growth in email and web chats. Web chat has been one of those big growth areas that people have been embracing. And of course, we're seeing more and more housing associations that want to support self-service. So irrespective of the digital channels, which could include social and WhatsApp, so getting into that channel of choice that people are using, it's also how do you empower people to self-serve. And I think what's really important here is about having an open and flexible architecture and platform like the Mitel system that you can incorporate different channels as you go, so you can provide choice to customers. And as you bring all these different channels in, it's really important to be able to manage them and pivot from one channel to another, because a customer, if they've got an urgent, high emotive inquiry, they may well want to pick the phone up, but if it's a general inquiry, they may be happy doing over email or web chat. So it's recognizing that customers will have choice and need choice, but also being able to pivot and move through these different channels as you interact with customers. So digital transformation is one of those massive shifts and buzzwords in our industry, but this is something that's happening. It's been happening for some time, and we've been seeing a lot of housing associations that have been investing in portals and online services and trying to encourage people to self-serve. Naturally, there's different types of services and different segments within the customer base, and there isn't a one-size-fits-all. So flexibility is important, but consistency of communication and service is one of those things that makes a real difference to customer experience. If you contact an organization through one channel, you don't expect to have to start the whole process over again when you contact through the next channel. So a big area people want is consistency of interaction, irrespective of channel, and being able to pivot from one to another. So it's something that customers want, but unfortunately, invariably, they don't get. People also expect very fast responses today. So there's that always-on culture, 24/7, where if you're encouraging a self-service and somebody gets stuck or wants help, then how are you going to provide that interaction with the customer? And customer experience, not just in the commercial world, but certainly in providing services to citizens and tenants, is becoming a key aspect and a key focus. Now, a lot of the reasons behind that actually are tied up with the commercial aspect, the financial aspect, that if you can deliver a smooth and seamless interaction with a customer, it actually requires less resource. If you can understand that journey and take unnecessary steps out and empower people to serve themselves, it costs less to deliver that experience that people are after. Digital overload. I think we could probably all associate with this. The number of emails that we get today continues to increase. The average worker receives 120 emails a day, and 28% of time is spent just sat there managing emails. I was talking with a customer the other day who's got 20 staff in one team that they're managing 1,500 emails a day into that team, where they're opening, reading, and forwarding emails to other people. So it's not adding any value to the organization or the customers, but it's actually taking a lot of resource to do that. So this is why we're seeing a lot of people wanting to move to automation of routing and responses, and starting to use some AI technology to streamline the operations and the customer interaction. Things such as WhatsApp, big growth area. This is an encrypted form of communication, and of course, most people today have a smartphone, so it's a great way of delivering interaction and communication directly to that individual's mobile. But if you're doing it, and if you're communicating through these channels, how do we bring it all together into a single interface and a single pane of glass? So things to consider. Reducing costs and improving customer experience. As I said, there are two areas that actually work hand in hand. If you can look at the journey, if you can improve self-service, if you can reduce friction and unnecessary steps, you make things more efficient. You actually improve the customer experience and you reduce the cost to serve as well. So there's a lot of examples that we have that would be happy to talk through and share access to case studies as well. So this is something we saw a little while back, which is businesses that were growing and using technology to automate. So a lot of interactions and business processes were automated, and then other organizations that were looking to personalize interactions and service and add value. And I think these two areas do work in unison, where if we can use automation to strip away unnecessary expensive interaction and fulfillment of transactions, we can start to free people up to deliver an excellence of service, start to think about what customers want, and start to personalize that interaction and add value. Spend more time solving problems for people as opposed to just opening and processing transactional interactions. We're going to be doing some demonstrations very shortly. So Inbox is a technology. It's a digital orchestration layer that enables us to take all these different digital communications and strands, whether it's email, SMS, chat, social, WhatsApp, and even IoT alerts in, and bring that into a single layer that can start to read, review, triage, automatically respond, and route interactions. So a lot of them can be automated, and the ones that need human interaction to actually add value and deal with problems, we can deliver directly into the contact center client. So what we're able to do is to bring all these different interaction methods and provide them directly into to the Mitel contact center. So it's no longer just about having phone calls or different systems for different communication channels. The opportunity we have today is a single pane of glass to deliver this omni-channel customer interaction and also take data from other systems, so empower people to deliver a great customer experience. So what I'd like to do now is to hand over to my colleague Gillian, who's going to actually show you some of this working in a real live demo. So no pressure. Over to you, Gil.
Thank you, Jonathan. You should see my screen appear. Yep. There we go. So as everyone's been talking about, there are now multiple kind of textual and communication channels that can come into a contact center, and quite often a lot of that is around noise. It's that continuous kind of frequently asked question, or you're getting what I call the Chuckle Brothers effect, where a communication will come into one department and then that'll have to be channeled off to various other departments before the communication goes back to the customer. Well, kind of what we have now is tools where you don't have to kind of not add value to communication, because we can read the rules, we can look at where you want to route it, we can look at the orchestration, and we can look at integrating with your CRM or housing management system. So we can start to have one-touch communication. And the beauty of that is we can also then feed it into your Mitel Ignite. So your agents have got one-touch response, and we're feeding that data. So if someone's coming in asking about a payment issue, we can feed that to the payment teams, whether that's coming through WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, email, or any other textual means that you might have web chat. It goes straight into that team. So here we have emails, and what we're able to do is from a simple email is create either a ticket or create a folder. So kind of you can then build on to that communication. And how we do it is we start to look at kind of different filters and different rules that can be put behind that. So we're able to filter out, and you'll see coming up later rules that I've got around some IoT devices, which I'll pick up on. But I can look. So, for example, payments is a classic one. We can pick out kind of the key words that might be coming through in the phrases, and then we can look at what we want to do in the next steps, and we can look at rules that we might apply. And you can see here, you can have multiple rules attaining to multiple different email addresses, and the other bonus that you get from this, again, is that one-click integration into Ignite. For not only emails, we can start to look at all the other channels that you're interested in. We can look at kind of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We can look at kind of automated web conversations and bring them all together into your Ignite. So you see here that if I make myself available, here we go, accept this tweet. So the tweet has come in, and I have all the functionality that you would have if you were responding through Twitter itself. So you're able to do that. You can build those conversations up. you can look at what you want to do. Again, you can start to add bots onto the front end. So if I have I can start to look at things like WhatsApp, and you'll see currently in the market where what's the kind of SMS, the interaction between clients and tenants with SMS is decreasing as WhatsApp is becoming a more popular means of communication. But again, it's opening up all the different channels that are available, and it's giving them to your agents to be able to respond to. And that's how we're building up. You see here, I'll just tell you a WhatsApp conversation. I'll accept that WhatsApp conversation. You can see during that whole conversation, I have double-checked that that's my address, double-checked that I've got the right contact details, and now it's going through to a team member. And I can say, hi, can I help? Send that through. And to prove we're on a live demo, I can say it's 12:27. Thanks. Back it comes. So you're having an instantaneous conversation, exactly the same as if you have a conversation through email or web chat, etc. So that is where we are able to support your organisation. And the other aspect is looking at, okay, so what rules do we want to put behind these conversations? Where do we want them to go? So I can look in here and I can look at kind of how I can set up and what channels rules to go. So if I have questions that they might be put on one aspect of a website, or they might be on multiple aspects on a website. Or you might want them to go across a number of different channels. I want similar conversations to happen on Twitter and Facebook, but I want a completely different automated conversation to happen on WhatsApp. Again, you are in control. You're trying to get your tenants to self-serve, and what we are trying to enable you as Britannic is to enable you to self-serve yourself, because you know your businesses best. That's a very brief overview of what is kind of available now and what could be implemented now in a very kind of unintrusive way, and really see that efficiency and that ROI grow. So I'll hand back now. There we go. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's back over to Ali for the
thank you.
next
I was
section.
on mute. So sorry, guys. I took myself off mute. So this slide is just a placeholder really before we move on to a scenario of a day in the life of a tenant, possibly. But this is all about, success requires connecting to tenants, devices and data. So to achieve, success in the future, I guess. The cloud market makes it simpler and faster to deliver, these kinds of applications. And we have a platform at Mitel called CloudLink that can help accelerate connections between, the data and devices. As we understand, how those components fit together. So for Mitel to deliver kind of the next generation of communications and collaboration tools, then we need to have, the ability, not capability, but ability, as I'll get there in a minute, as you have already seen, to integrate to, those third-party applications and, chatbots and AOI and digital workflows, not necessarily voice call flows as an example. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to my colleague, Mark Anderson, who's going to talk to you or demonstrate to you a real-life scenario of, a day in the life of a tenant and some of the experiences that they challenge. So I'll hand over to Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. So thank you very much for positioning that. What I'm going to do is go through a bit of a storyboard scenario for you. So once I get going on that, it'll come to life a little bit more, but it's more around a story, but it involves the technology. So we're going to be looking at the Mitel product set, but also the capability of adding third-party products into that, which Gillen has already done a demonstration of as well. The journey will highlight a possible use case event, and although on the face of it, the event is fairly straightforward and a common occurrence, it might and will identify certain complexities and challenges faced when needing to apply a technology solution to solve the problems. At the end of the scenario, we'll just recap the technology journey that we've seen and taken, and again look at the challenges faced before I hand back to our presenters. So from our storyboard, what we're looking at here, so we have a tenant. This is Emma. She's our use case tenant, and she lives in a housing association flat. Whilst out at work, Emma's boiler breaks down, but luckily for Emma, the housing association has fitted all of their boilers at their properties with a smart sensor, an IoT device. This can detect when an issue has occurred and triggers an event. In this case, the event is a failure of a component on the boiler, which when detected, the event is created and a webhook, I should say rather, is triggered. Once the webhook is triggered, this can create an open media interaction into the housing association's Mitel contact center. An agent can be there waiting. Obviously, they have to be licensed for voice and multimedia. So anything over voice, then we're looking to add the multimedia license to that agent or agent group, and then they can receive interactions such as open media, as well as many other of the other solutions that Gillen talked about earlier, where it could be email, it could be web chat, it could be SMS, etc. Okay, so once the interaction has arrived, it contains the relevant fault data. This could link possibly to a customer record, a CRM system. We've talked about CRM systems in some earlier slides, etc. So that could trigger information on a customer record. Once the information has been reviewed by the agent, the advisor or agent advisor can call Emma, whose contact details are in the CRM record or in the MICC database. It depends on what you're hooked up to. The advisor sets up a follow-up reminder, so she's going to call the Emma, in this case, our tenant, and just explain what's going on with the fault. And of course, they want to look at booking in a relevant time where an engineer can come out to visit. So a follow-up action can be triggered in the contact center, and this will remind the agent that there's follow-up actions to take and update any notes necessary. So now, moving on, the advisor needs to contact the maintenance and repair team. In this case, you can use many technologies. A simple phone call or email will suffice, but we wanted to highlight some of the other technologies available. So in this case, we're looking at Mitel's UC client called MyCollab. MyCollab can run on a PC, and it can run on a mobile device as well. So in this scenario, what we've done is the advisor has contacted the maintenance repair team via an instant message over MyCollab. The engineer in this case is using the MyCollab mobile client and has received the chat and can confirm the parts availability and their own availability to go out and fix the fault. Moving on, the advisor who can update all the information because the flag for follow-up arrives into our inbox. This then prompts them to update the notes, so everything is kept up to date, and a follow-up reminder is completed and all the notes are updated therefore. Before the advisor calls Emma to arrange a visit, there was no answer because Emma unfortunately was unavailable or busy, but using the omni-channel capability within Ignite, the agent has details or other contact details for Emma and is able to pivot seamlessly to create an SMS. So in this case now, the advisor is sending an SMS message to Emma to advise her of the time, date that the engineer will place a visit. It's a real life case scenario is what can happen. We've got the engineer en route, but unfortunately is stuck in rush hour traffic and is late for the appointment. In this case, Emma has other appointments that she needs to keep that evening. So she wants a bit of an update. Again, she could phone, she could email, she could do various other methods. But in this case, we want to use the housing associations that they've created a web chat. So on a mobile device, because it can be accessed either via a mobile or PC, the web chat is used by Emma on her mobile, and she seeks an update from the advisor. The web chat, in giving some information about her, she's given herself her email address in this case. Because she's done that, it's a piece of information that's known by the contact center, the CRM system, etc. So the relevant case, which contains all the previous interactions and notes and information that's taken place so far within this particular scenario and story, that pops to the advisor, so they're fully aware, even if it's not the same advisor, of the situation and story so far. The advisor can see that an engineer is en route, calls the engineer, gets an update, and is able to reply back to Emma via the web chat capability that the engineer's arrival is imminent. The engineer arrives at site, fixes the fault, and updates back to the advisor with the fixed details, etc. Again, just to keep those notes and everything around that case up to date. The next day, the advisor follows up with a call to Emma just to confirm everything's okay, and once that is done, the case can be resolved. Okay, so it's still all there for reference and history, but that particular case has been resolved. The journey, when we just look back at that journey, I know we've put it into some sort of storyboard format, but it's trying to look at that possible journey and what can happen in a real life scenario. Is it's pretty much a non-linear journey that the customer has been on. Okay, so we looked at open media, so that Internet of Things, that trigger event that first of all started off the journey, and that's arrived into the contact center. We looked at voice calls. Voice calls is bread and butter for Mitel, obviously, but we looked at how details are captured, and therefore a database with customer details is there, and we can make that a relevant call because it's all tied together. We looked at instant messaging. We looked at MyCollab and a UC client being involved. We also looked at more voice calls, but pivoting this time to SMS, so bringing another interaction type into the contact center. We looked at live chat. Again, live chat on the customer's website, routed through to the contact center. As Jonathan mentioned earlier, it's keeping that single pane for the advisor. And okay, it's not mentioned here, but Jonathan has, as well as what Gillian looked at, is social media. It's massive, and we know that customers are using it as well. So a customer interaction through social media can also arrive as an open media interaction into the contact center, and whether that's SMS, Twitter, Facebook, etc., has been talked about. So an up and down, non-linear journey, and you know, when we look at those challenges that are faced, as we saw quite there, it's the awareness of customer issues. How do we get to know about those issues? You know, what is the technology we can give to the customer, or give ourselves the capability of making us aware of potential issues that a customer is facing? The multiple communication methods that are there today. You know, everybody has a choice. Maybe the older generation prefer a phone call, but the more sort of millennial people would rather just pick up and do a web chat. So it's providing enough choice and options for the customer to contact into you. The integrations piece, I mean, that's, again, the challenges faced around, you know, all these different methods and then bringing them into that single pane. I mean, Gillian's demo showed a great tool to bring all those places in, bring all these things into one place. The tracking of progress, so, you know, what's happening through this journey, and you've got the ability to update CRM records or the notes within the contact center case ID. Updating all parties, so who are all the people that have been involved when you go through a case and a journey through that contact centre, and like you've seen, you will actually see all the parties who've been involved. So whether you conference somebody else in, or you bring your supervisor in, or whatever it may be, the ability to see everybody who's been involved and be able to communicate back with them is possible. Of course, it all points towards what we aim to achieve, and that's the positive customer experience, which is the end goal, what we want as our highest priority. So hopefully that's just painted a little bit of a picture around possible use case where we've got all this great technology, but where does it fit into daily sort of user cases? So hopefully we've just brought that to life a little bit.
And if I can just quickly add to that, sorry, Mark. So
that's okay.
You know, we're certainly seeing it at Britannic, working with customers, that we're looking at these key lines of inquiry or processes. So whether it be the repairs function, we're looking at how we help customers to redesign that workflow and that process to improve the communication between the organisation and the tenant, to share this information, to store it and update CRM and back office systems. And you know, we must recognise that there's many systems that people are using and dropping into to fulfil inquiries and requirements for customers. So again, being able to bridge this and build these automated processes, workflows, enhance the communication, and importantly, bridge not just the interaction between the staff within the housing association, both you know, working from home in the office, or field workers and customers, but also the third parties, the contractors that are involved in the fulfilment. You know, if we're looking at aspects like rent arrears and collections, you know, there's so many areas of great efficiencies that can be delivered. We're working with a housing association at the moment, looking at how we can help to improve the way in which they're managing collections, their collection process, and blending aspects like SMS messaging and reminders and payments into that process to improve the way in which the service is delivered, and of course, you know, look at how and where efficiencies can be achieved to be able to reinvest in other areas moving forward. So a lot of opportunity, and the important thing is that open platform, which is certainly in abundance with Mitel, to bring all these different channels in and manage it.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I think it's over to Gil for really a review around IoT integration, and again, just a quick demo of this working in real life.
So yeah, thank you, Jonathan. So kind of as with before, what the platform enables you to do is not only focus on the interactions between tenant and yourselves around maybe payments or repairs, but you can start to create the efficiencies where you're only reacting to what you need to react to. So what we have with a fantastic partnership is whether you've got existing IoT centres out there or you're looking to implement them, it doesn't have to be a scary process. We're working with Daisy and ourselves. We're brought together not only to be able to bring all the information together, normalise it, but then we've got the next step, which is the orchestration layer, which is the kind of what are the next actions? Is it an emergency, so we need to send something directly to a third-party repair? Is it just a reminder that we want to go out to the tenant? And all of this can be worked either as a kind of a single pass-through, so there's no need for an agent to see it. We can link in with your CRMs, and you can set those thresholds and those next step actions to suit your organisation. Whether it's you want an engineer to go out to everything, whether you want a housing officer to go out more regularly to someone, but you can start to look and track those actions. So I think kind of as the thresholds are hit, we can then sit and kind of automate those next step actions, bringing you through so that you can kind of, if an emergency light test fails, it means that you can send an engineer to that precise light. You're not having to walk around the whole your kind of your whole stock to find where that light might be. We are pinpointing these actions for you. With Legionellas, if something fails Legionella's compliance test, then we can send an engineer directly to the right tap to go and purge, rather than trying to kind of having to regularly go around all the taps within your organisation to purge them. So it's to create those efficiencies, and suddenly that team of repairs and engineers have got work streams that they're working towards. So you're getting more done throughout the day, and it's more effective work. So if I show you this in action, it just takes a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds for the screen to come through. Yeah, there we go. There's the screen share. So again, we come back to the inbox. So here you can see I've got two tickets set up. One is about boiler alerts, and one is about the moisture and temperature within the house. And we've got some next steps we can add to that. And what I've also set up is a folder around Legionella and its compliance, and whether kind of we've got an email through kind of, here we go, status is there, it's non-compliant, what's the next steps you're going to add to it? So if we look at the beginning platform, here is where, as an organisation, you can set your thresholds. So here, if I move this down, we've got a mould threshold of 58%, which can also look at kind of what the minimum efficiency of a boiler is before an alert is sent out. So you're not having to come in and check the data as the data is spewed through to you. We are creating kind of with yourselves that next step action. So you're not having to continuously kind of go through or sort of unefficiently go around and be checking multiple actions. It's also a really good way of starting that education with your tenant, which improves your stock, which means that your stock lasts longer, which means that when you start to look at things around insurances, etc., there's potential savings that could be made there. So we've got three examples. One is around the boiler, one is around humidity levels, and one is around Legionella and whether it's compliant or not. So if I start with the smart thermostat, I'm going to say here, here's my threshold. Actually, my boiler isn't working very well, so I've gone down below, so boiler band too low. That would have triggered an email for a next step. Same with humidity. Here are my thresholds. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Suddenly, there's a spike, and again, you can set whether this spike is around kind of whether there's time, whether it's for how long it's stored up for. It may be that someone's at home washing their team's football kit. But if that continues on for 2, 3, 4, 12 hours, that's when you want an alert, and that's when you want to start the education. So I trigger those off, so then we come to the next step. So in here, we've created these tickets. So what we're able to do is create one. These are all going to the same address. So this gives you an example that actually something does need to be done, because there's numerous actions going to the same address. All of this code that comes through, again, this is where we would link with your CRM to pick up, to make sure that we're not kind of GDPR is followed and we're not kind of banding around personal detail. We can then, when this comes in, we can link up with your CRM or housing system, and then we can look at kind of creating some templated emails. So this is a next step. So kind of those of you that potentially might see the joke with the 29 Acacia Rose, Eric Allen was Banana Man, and that's where the link comes in. So you can see here, what we're now doing is engaging with the customer, and this can be automated when we link them with the CRM to support them to go, oh, hang on a minute, oh yeah, kind of, here's an action I can try, and then we can monitor it and see whether that's working or not. Otherwise, we can start to look at kind of, actually this is continuous, and if they come back to us, you've created a ticket and a continuous event, which means that if this then goes to a housing officer or someone along those lines, you're able to track it all the way through to the resolution. Again, helping you when it comes to, I don't know, reviewing with your tenants or looking out for things like kind of heat and fuel poverty, or kind of where they're struggling to maybe pay their energy bills, so that it's not turning on and off at the right times, and there's big disparities between the temperature and the moisture. So all of those starts to help you become a better organisation, not only because you are engaging with your tenants to show them how they can make those changes, and which hopefully helps them to be more efficient in their bills and to kind of moving forward to become better tenants and look after your stock better. But you're also able to kind of pick up when actually it's gone further than just an education piece. Actually, there's something wrong here. We need to find out, and then you become that caring organisation, because you can spot maybe where there is potential fuel poverty or other aspects that are happening within that household. But this is a very quick demo, and I've tried to keep it kind of as simple as possible about we can set your threshold, we can collect data from one or two or hundreds of different IoT sensors out there. We can kind of bring it all together, we can normalise that data for you, and then we can create those next step actions, whether automated or whether actioned by an individual themselves, because there's more of a case involved rather than just a transactional activity. And that's where not only can you save money because it's more efficient, you become engaging, and you become a real kind of a 360 approach to how you look at working with your tenants and keeping your stock. I'm more than happy after to kind of go into more detail about the questions, but what I don't want to do is overcomplicate it in such a short span of time.
And again, Gil, just to reiterate, we can do exactly the same as we showed in the previous demo and drive those alerts into the Mitel Ignite contact center. So you can have certain teams that are picking these up, checking, contacting the customer as per Mark's scenario, all through that single application.
Yeah, so I think we're now on to the roundup, Jonathan.
Okay, so hopefully you found that of interest. I know we've covered a lot of ground there. I think the important thing is that there is definitely a change in customers' expectations around accessing service through different digital channels. We're all looking at it in our own businesses around how and where we can improve efficiency. So self-service has become a key aspect. And of course, I think the important thing is how do we look at our workflows and our processes, and how do we optimize them based upon rules and context to be able to connect to the right people, to the right members of staff to deliver an excellence of service. But how do we learn from this information and data to have a process of continual evolution and improvement? So hopefully we've shown you some ideas and capability there, and we're more than happy to have follow-on discussions and dig into it in more detail. I know there's whistle-stop tour, as I said, but we'll now open for questions. So do we have any questions that you'd like us to answer for you?
Great. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for that, and the team. That was a very comprehensive session. So just to the audience, if you have any last-minute questions, please type away. They take a second or two to come through. But in the meantime, we do have a couple, so please shout up if you would like to answer them. So we have a question. So if you already have a web portal implemented, how important is an app to support self-service? Anybody want to take that one?
Gil, do you want to take that?
Yeah. I suppose the key factor here is looking at actually kind of what problem do you want to solve? Is there an issue around the self-serve that they cannot do everything, or are there certain aspects that you want to improve, or do you want to automate more of that self-service by being able to interact more with your CRM or housing system? the beauty of these products and platforms that we have is that you can change the way you're looking at it. It's not about kind of what is the solution. This is what I want to kind of, so I just want to implement this to send someone an email. What we're able to do is change the way you're thinking. So what do you want to achieve? How do you want to work? And where do you want to go? And then we can start to look back at where you are already, what gaps there might be, what problems there are, and then potentially where we can integrate some of the platform into that. So kind of it comes back to what is the problem that you would like to solve, and I'm quite happy to have that conversation with you in more detail.
And again, just adding to that, so we're using a component-based agile architecture and very much an agile approach. So we had a customer contact us. In fact, it was on a Monday afternoon. The Tuesday we had a demo. Wednesday they placed an order, and Friday we had a system set up. They went live for the following week, and this was about handling email inquiries into the contact center, very large volumes, and actually been able to provide that triage and automated response and then routing. And actually within the first month, I think it was 140,000 emails that they'd taken in, and they actually got up to 94% successful automated handling. So, really rapid mobilization of technology to solve a problem they were having, which was ultimately underpinned by a very large contract that they've won that they needed to fulfill. And it was how did we apply the technology to solve that problem. So there's an existing portal, we can deploy these technologies within those environments. It's just looking at, as Gil said, the problems that you're having and what's the best approach to help.
Yeah, and that same client there, within a week it was recognised that what we'd implemented was doing the work of 16 agents. So the ROI and the impact can be very high very quickly.
Great, thank you. A question for Mark, I think, as he was talking about chatbots. How easy is it to add those digital interaction methods? So like chatbot that you demonstrated, how can that be easily incorporated?
So chatbot, it's just, when you're talking about chatbot, we're talking about AI, so Mitel obviously have a relationship with Google, and we use the dialogue flow, but it's an understanding of what the customer's ask is, because an open-ended chatbot can be quite complex. You have to build lots of intents and possible answers to questions that the customer may potentially ask. So the building blocks are, for us, from a Mitel point of view, is the Mitel contact center in place. It's the web chat capability needs to be there as well. So the AI is delivered through our contact center messenger chat, which is embedded onto your web page. It's just that choice whether, as I said, from a building blocks point of view, a lot of people just have web chat, so you're going to have a conversation directly straight through to an available agent. And if you want to introduce AI, then that piece isn't happening at that point. You are then going to talk to the chatbot that is built in the back end of Google. So it's I'd say relatively straightforward. It's obviously achievable. It's just understanding realistically what, as a customer, is required so that you can build it effectively. It's one of these things, it's not like something you just build and you walk away from it, and it just you've got to keep nurturing it. Using its natural language processing, Google, it can obviously learn from the questions being asked. It can, at a point where it cannot assist, hand over to a live agent, and then stays on with that conversation to see what it didn't know, and to potentially provide more information, documentation that may be asked of when the conversation is now between the customer and the live agent. So any suggestions, the bot can still provide some assistance with that. So
I think it's also important, Mark, to say that there's, there are two fundamentals, I think, as a part of the chatbot. There's a FAQ chatbot, where the chat will automatically go and find a piece of information to deliver to a tenant, as an example, or there's a transactional chatbot, which is clearly more complex. So, the tenant wants to pay their rent, and through the chatbot it goes to a third-party application in the back office to deliver that. So back office processes are included in that. So that's what we're seeing. There's two very distinct, different elements to chatbot. FAQ, which is something simple, and as Mark said, if it can't be answered, can be transacted or transferred directly to a live agent to assist, or that transactional chatbot that will take a piece of information, whether that's customer account number and payment information, and hook into a back office app. So that's what we're also seeing. Sorry for interrupting, Mark. I thought you'd finished.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
And sorry, just to back Mark up on that as well, the chatbots don't just have to be for web chat. We are able to put across WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, even email. So kind of you can create that customer experience by delivering them the wording back in the format that it's come in. So your wording back to a WhatsApp would be different to an email, which would be different to a tweet. So you're able to build those in depending on kind of where you want that point focused, and you can also kind of central down the question. So it may just be on a particular page or about a particular subject, but an answer can come up. So they can be really flexible, and again, that they are, as Mark was saying, that continuous improvement tool that just takes a little bit of time just to build it up, but through natural language or some other aspects, we are able to kind of continue that development so that you are kind of hitting the target market and hopefully getting very few pass through to an actual agent because that question has been asked. And it's a very, very good way of with an ROI of actually answering those questions rather than having them come into a contact centre.
Great, thank you. So we are coming up, obviously we've just gone over the hour, but I'm happy to keep answering or asking a few questions to the team if you're happy to stay on. Obviously it is recorded, so if you do wish to look at this later on, then please feel free to. We can also send you the link to the recording to replay or pass on to your colleagues, as I've said. So I'll just carry on with a couple of questions while we've got time. We have somebody asking about, so if you have engineers in the field, perhaps on a maintenance point of view, what happens if you have some outsourced engineers or contractors? How can they interact with the system in the way that you demonstrated?
Again, they can interact quite well because it's down to the as the message comes in, we can automatically forward that to an engineer. If it goes through your CRM, it means we can pick out all the details that they need. And if they respond back with kind of and copy an email address or keep with the ticket number, then again that continually adds it to that same ticket. So you're able to engage those that are out in the field, but also you're able to look at the kind of SLA and monitor that slightly, so that if something hasn't been fixed or isn't repaired or if something comes up which is more of an emergency than potentially what's on their list, you are able to communicate with them very quickly with all the detail, with the flow of the conversation or the ticket that's already happened, so they're able to action those next steps.
Okay, great. And a question around have we seen any scenarios where it's actually used or the technology has been used to incentivize tenants to keep a home in an optimal environment? I don't know if you've seen any examples of that.
We haven't worked on those, but that's definitely becoming more and more the conversation that we are having, because it's not only about incentivizing the tenant, it's about the learning, it's about the education with them, and that kind of, once they've got the education, there's no reason they're not to kind of have that incentivision, if that's a word. But there's also, on the other side, looking at potential benefits through better insurance, etc., because you can prove how proactively you are engaging with your tenants, and it's not costing you extra to do that, because quite a lot of that whole process is automated and orchestrated, enabling you to be able to do more with the same or fewer agents.
Okay, perfect. Okay, as we are a little bit over time, I will close off the session. So we have recorded all the questions. If we haven't managed to answer them, then we will, of course, do that directly, and I'm sure the Britannic team will be in contact. So thanks, Jonathan, if you want to summarise.
Yes, thank you very much for your interest today. As I said, there's a lot of change and a lot of opportunity with technology today. Working with Mitel, we think we've got some really great world-leading solutions. So we'd love to work with you. We'd love to have further discussions and clearly spend more time looking at your own requirements and how we could help to support your own transition and development into the future. So thank you very much from Britannic, and thank you very much from Mitel.